kiss, kiss on Kirblog. Hey, hey, maybe you're Kirblog. You're not, though. Oh, only I am, but anyway. Great. Good. Welcome. Anime April continues with a very unexpected, because literally this happened like within the last 24 hours. A show I wasn't thinking I was going to cover at all, with a guest I wasn't expecting to be joined by. Please say hi, and not that you need any real introduction, but give me one anyway. So.
Okay, hi, I'm Caitlin Glass. Today we're going to be talking about Ouran High School Host Club, a little show that I ADR directed, and I also played Haruhi Fujioka.
Yeah. And it was, so funny story before we start. I thought I had enough topics to cover for the whole rest of the month, and I was putting a little thing on Twitter saying, hey, if anybody's got any last-second ideas for ones to go over, and of the many, Caitlin popped in, was like, oh, I'm gonna plug a couple I'm working on. I'm assuming right now, because I'm assuming they're the broadcast dubs.
Yeah.
A couple new shows, and I was like, I'm sorry, I haven't seen them yet. I suck. But then I realized, wait a minute, I've seen Ouran Host Club. Caitlin directed that. This is perfect. And so I reached out, and she was kind enough to lend some time in between a very busy schedule of, I'm assuming, directing like 30 million different things at the same time at FUNimation right now.
Just like maybe 3.
Well, so either way, that's, yeah. I mean, those of you who don't know, I mean, and shame on you if you don't, Caitlin, of course, is very prominent anime and also video game voice actress. We were both on, we were talking about Tales of Zestiria off mic a second ago. We were Dezel and Rose together in that, which was lovely.
Aww.
Yeah. I wanted to invite Caitlin on for this one because not only was she the voice director and voice of one of the lead characters in the English dub of the show, but she was also a big fan of the series before it got even licensed, I think.
Correct.
So typically I've been, my quote-unquote outline for these, if you can even call it that, is I was starting off with how you got into the show. So your story with that technically begins before mine, because I didn't see it until it was dubbed. So please indulge. Tell us about how you discovered the magic of this series.
I was actually told by a friend that I should watch this show. My friend Anne, it's like my anime buddy, and she goes, have you heard of this show called Ouran High School Host Club? I said, no. And at the time, I was voice acting and directing at FUNimation. I started directing in late 2005, and Ouran came into existence about this time 10 years ago. Can you believe that?
Wow,
10 years
that's
ago.
Crazy. Yeah.
So that's when it had come out in Japan. And I don't know that it was 2006 that, well, yeah. Sorry if I jump around in time a lot, but she goes, anyway, there's
okay.
this show called Ouran, and you should see it. I think that you'd really like it. And I'm like, cool. But I didn't know how I was going to see it, because being someone working in the anime industry, I was not about to go and like download it myself. And,
right.
Legal streaming was not really a thing, even just 10 years ago. It's amazing how far the industry has come, and I'm very glad of that. But anyway,
For sure.
Eventually she obtained some episodes. I'm not going to say how, because I don't actually know how. She just handed them to me one day on a disc and said, watch this. I'm like, okay. So that's what I did, and I watched it, and I was totally hooked. And I'm like, give me more, I need more. And she kept saying, wouldn't it be amazing if FUNimation licensed this show? And I said, yes, it would. I would freak out if they did. What's funny, though, folks ask me at panels all the time, like, did you plan to play Haruhi from the get-go? Like, is that what you wanted? I'm like, no. In fact, when I saw the show and I fell in love with it, I wanted to direct it, like, more than anything. Because I just, you could tell that there's something special about it. And I knew that fans of that type of show deserved a really good dub for it. To maintain a lot of the character of the show and the heart of it and the culture as well. It's a very culturally different show, and I didn't want it to get kind of like dub whitewashed, where everything starts to just become the same because they're afraid to be too Japanese, which there was a time in the history of dubs where that was a thing. I don't think companies understood that the reason fans like anime is because it's Japanese, because it's different. Those are the cool things about it that we dig. So anyway, it was just sort of a dream. Like, wow, it would be really cool if we could get it. And I thought, I wonder if Funimation knows that it exists. And of course they did, because they had their ear to the ground. They were always looking, and still do look at, what are the fans interested in that's coming out in Japan that we should try and obtain. So there was a lot of hullabaloo about the show. So they had heard of it, but I was constantly going back to Justin Cook's office. Usually he was the only person I knew to go to.
I was about to say, I picture you just bursting into his office being like, Justin. And he's like, I know, Ouran. I've seen it.
Shut up already. Yeah. It was something kind of like that. I remember telling him about it once, and he's like, yeah, we've heard of it. I'm like, okay. And I would just keep coming back to check. Be like, do you, anything about it? Do you know?
Yeah.
No? Okay, cool, great. And then I think it was at an Otakon, maybe in 2007, I think, summer, and they announced at their industry panel that they had acquired it, they'd licensed it, and I was like, oh my gosh, my dream is coming true. So then I was excited, but almost immediately nervous again, because I'd been directing there for a bit, but I had nowhere near the seniority of any of the other directors in the building. I was the newest director, probably. So why should a show of that caliber go to me? So then there was the nail biting and the campaigning for it to please go to me, please, because that's kind of what we had to do back then, was sort of campaign and let it be known that we were interested in something, and then hopefully they would give the project to the person who expressed the most interest. And so then what was the next step? Mike McFarland, whom I'm sure you all know who that is, director and producer, at the time was my boss, because we had a different system than we do now, and he was a line producer, and so he would oversee multiple productions in process, and be given kind of a certain number of them to be in charge of. And when he got them, he could decide, oh, this is a cool show, I want to direct it, or no, I'm going to pass on this one and let so-and-so on my team do that one. So he knew how much I loved Ouran, and they did give him the project, but when they gave it to him, it's almost like it was sitting there waiting to find out what was going to be done with it. I mean, obviously a dub, but I mean the schedule-wise. And I was in China. I was in Shanghai working on a game, working on Infinite Undiscovery.
I remember that. Yeah, all you guys were going to Shanghai. I was like, whoa, what the hell is going on with that?
Yeah. So I was in Shanghai, and I was there for 2 weeks or more doing this game. And while I was there, Funimation moved buildings. We had just this huge thing. We moved from the building we'd been at in North Richland Hills to where we are now in Flower Mound, and I think it was because of the move that a lot of things were kind of on hold, because, which studios were going to be up and running when we got to the new building and all of that, what shows would be in them. And so it was decided while I wasn't there that it was time to start production on Ouran, but I wasn't there. And Mike was like, if you take this show away from Caitlin, you might wake up missing a limb or something. What? You can't do that to her. So he couldn't really contact me because of the time difference and etc. So he just told them, they were like, well, you need to do the auditions, and she's going to have to, I guess, share the show with somebody else. And he didn't even want to do that, because he just felt like the rest of the folks on the team, I don't remember who his team was. It was me and him and maybe one other person. And that other director was working on something else. He's like, nobody else is prepared to even start any work on this show. He's like, I don't have a clue. I know that Caitlin really loves it and that it's great. That's all that he knew. So he just told production, as soon as she gets back, she'll work 12-hour days to make sure that we get caught up. Because they didn't want to wait for me to get back to begin auditions. Because auditions would take about a week, and then I got to decide, and then you get to start, and etc. So he just told them without checking with me that I would just essentially be there all the time to make sure we stayed on schedule. And
12-hour days on this show I love. Yes, please, sign me up.
Yes, please. But, I mean, I was jet-lagged. I got back from from Shanghai, and the very next day I was at Funimation. And while I was there, in Shanghai is when I was working on making the audition sides. And here's a secret. I'm terrible at making audition sides. I really hate it. It's so bad. I wish that I could just have, I'm going to record myself talking about every character next time I have auditions and send that out to people. Like, here's what I have to tell you about this person. I don't want to figure out how to write it. Okay, here it is. Do this. Anyway, so I asked my friend Anne, the one that introduced me to Ouran in the first place, because she was the only other person I knew that knew the show as well as I did, who wasn't, spending 10 hours a day recording a video game in a foreign country. So I'm like, could you make these sides for me? She's like, sure. So she did all the character descriptions, and I did the pulling of the lines from the script, and came back, and I had emailed all of those files to the talent coordinator, and everything was printed out for me, and I showed up all jet lagged and went, okay, let's have some auditions for Ouran High School Blues Club in a studio in a building I'd never even seen before. It was pretty cool how that all worked out, and that's how I started directing Ouran. Hooray!
Wow, what a start.
Yeah.
I did want to ask, actually, a quick side note, is Anne the same Anne from the ye old Instant Messenger Full Metal Alchemist fan chats that used to happen
Sana.
a lot? That's what I thought. Sana, if you're out there and listening to this, missed you. Hope you're doing well. It's been ages since I caught up with her. My story is not nearly as interesting, but and it's a little shorter. But basically, the first time I learned about it was another friend of Sana's actually, was doing a fan dub of the first episode. And I was not like a voice acting alliance, prominent like amateur VA or whatever. I wasn't really like big into doing fan dubs or whatever. But they asked me to do something for them, and I think they asked me to do Kyoya in it.
Oh, cool.
And I was like, oh, sure, okay. And I knew nothing. I did it. I read the lines or whatever. And then I don't even, as I've learned often happens with VAA projects in general, is it didn't end up even getting made. And I was like, all right, well, whatever. I was like, oh, this is neat. And then I remember hearing more and more about it. I knew that you were big into it because I think you were talking on and on about it on like LiveJournal. Remember LiveJournal, everybody?
Oh, man. I'm sure my LiveJournal still exists out there somewhere, but I can't remember my password to get back into it.
Thankfully, mine does not anymore. I was young and stupid. But I was hearing all about it. I think definitely from you and Sana, if I'm remembering right, like just going on and on about it. I'm like, oh, this seems pretty cool. I like the art style a lot, and the character designs are pretty neat. Mm-hmm. And then the dub was announced, and I saw the casting for it, and it seemed really exciting. And I was like, you know what, I do kind of want to see the show, but I didn't have like the full kick until I was dating a girl at the time who was a massive fan of it. And I bought her, I think as a birthday present or something, the first box set with the first 13 episodes on it. Mm-hmm. And we just marathoned through it. And I'm just like, you know what? I liked this show a lot. It's funny because it reminds me of just recently we had a little marathon over here with a bunch of the cast of Love Live, which you also voiced in and wrote on. And I went into that show being like, okay, I want to support my friends and hear all their performances and stuff, thinking like, all right, show's probably not going to be my thing. And then like we watched like 6 episodes, and I was just like, and then what? And then what happened? I was like sucked in. And with Ouran, I think I don't know what I was expecting. I think I wasn't expecting to be like super into it because I'm like, it seems a little bit more like aimed towards girls, which is totally fine. But like, it's a little like, especially because there's so many like, guy fan servicey like harem shows or whatever. It's like all for more catering to the girl fans kind of shows. But once I like really like gave it the proper time of day, and I got through it, I was like, this is this is really cool. There's a lot of like really nice like interesting subverts of these character, like these usual kind of anime character tropes that I really wasn't expecting. Like a lot of the little like the one-off characters are really fun and entertaining, and like the overarching kind of development, especially between Haruhi and Tamaki, proved to, and also just her interactions with all of the other boys in the club.
Yeah.
I was really intrigued, and I was like, okay, this is cool. And then I came back for the second half. I think I might have bought Girlfriend at the Time the second half later, just because I wanted to see the rest of it myself. And I was like, this is really cool. I was like, I'm glad I watched this. This was very different than the type of stuff I had seen at the time in terms of the anime that I was into, and I'm glad that I got to experience it, and especially because like I knew, because we had met like way before I was even doing anything professional. I knew that you were like a big genuine anime fan and like really like was invested in this stuff, and it seemed like that really shined through in a really good way with the production of the dub. And everybody I know always says really good things about it in general, and it seems like it's weaved out a little place in many folks' hearts.
It has. It's
yeah.
a special show. It really is, and I think that it was ahead of its time as far as the questions and the issues that it brings up regarding gender and equality and things like that. So that's why one of the reasons I feel that it's still very relevant today. But something about the show makes it extremely approachable to folks, and it's often like a lot of people's gateway into anime, because someone has seen it and then they meet a person who's like, what's anime? And they're like, well, let me show you this show, because they know that it's light and it's fun. Yeah, I have kids coming up to me at cons that are 10 to 13 years old, and like, this is my first anime. I just watched it last week and now I love anime. I'm like, you were not born when I made it. I say I made it, when we dubbed it. Like, wow. Okay, so it's crazy. The dub itself isn't 10 years old, but the show is. And to think that so many people are still discovering it is wonderful. I can't say that about the majority of the work that I've done in the last dozen or so years. But Ouran really has what it takes to be a lasting title, and I'm very proud of it.
I'm actually really happy. I genuinely had no idea that was the case, because I mean, often when I think of, well, when it comes to gateways of anime, it seems to be like a lot of the times it's like you see something like Pokemon, Dragon Ball Z, like something on like Cartoon
some
Network,
long running
the
show,
daytimes.
Naruto, Bleach, something.
Yeah. And then like then when okay, what's this anime stuff all about? Then you discover like Bebop and like the more kind of not obscure shows, but like the ones that aren't just like buy the toys,
Yeah.
not that we don't love the buy the toy shows as well. Like, they're wonderful. But you kind of, there's different levels and layers of that, and then you find a lot of the classic anime movies and stuff like that. But the fact that Ouran is a show that's becoming like people's first series that they get into, I was not expecting that, but I'm really happy to hear that, because it's. I remember I was just watching some panels from, I forget what con it was, but like Scott McNeil was talking about. Because we love Scott, about how what's cool about anime is because like it is inherently often more mature than a lot of North American animation. It is allowed to go into like, let's tell stories about gender confusion and sexuality and like kind of deep psychological issues that not, or at least maybe a little bit more so now, but most American cartoons often just don't think to want to do.
I mean, exactly. Look at Haruhi. She's this girl that doesn't really care if she's viewed as a boy or a girl, which that isn't saying like Haruhi is going to be transgendered or something like that. I don't mean that at all. She's just very kind of, I don't even want to call her gender neutral. It's more like she has the mindset that so many people nowadays I think need to have or should have or want to have, and that we're equal. It doesn't matter if you're a guy or you're a girl. We should be treated equally. And she states that kind of stuff like right in the very first episode, and the fact that her father is a professional. I think we use the term transvestite in the show, and I apologize that might be considered offensive nowadays. They even say tranny, and they say that he works at a tranny bar, but those were directly from the translation. Like we use terms that they gave us in the trans, and we thought that must be because that's what they call it, so we're going to call it that too. But I mean, her father is a professional woman, essentially. And and he was married to a woman, and he even says, like, Kotoko, that's his wife, she didn't care that that's what I was into. Who cares? And I was totally in love with her. She doesn't care I want to dress like a woman. But, you know, his wife is dead, and that's his job, to be a woman and work in a bar. And could you imagine that in a cartoon made here? And I still can't imagine that nowadays, even though that would probably be something applauded to have a character like that. But this was this is anime, and they're like, here it is, take it or leave it. And,
yeah, absolutely. I think, I mean, you know, this could be a whole other topic, but I mean, I think that with stuff like Legend of Korra and like Steven Universe and a lot of these different shows now, where like creators are definitely trying to push the envelope. I think we're slowly but surely getting there for sure. But yeah, I mean, just the fact that like, yeah, having that kind of stuff and being like, no, this is normal. This is a part of life, and there are lots of different types of people in the world, and they all have their own different sets of you know, issues to deal with, and you know, demons they have to conquer, and things about themselves and the world and how they fit into it that they have to figure out. And you know, Haruhi and her dad, you know, skipping ahead a bit to him for sure, or to her technically, you know, having that as the main character, and even, you know, to go to Tamaki too, like Tamaki, I think it's, you know, it's funny because obviously in the story he's very much infatuated with Haruhi, and it's also very easy to look at like he's a very flamboyant, like effeminate, you know, like almost like the way often like gay stereotype characters are depicted, but he's so just like, he's so all over the place and so complicated in like his romantic and or, you know, sexual or whatever interests, that even like, yeah, like him and Haruhi in particular, like they make for a really intriguing and entertaining, not in like a novelty way at all, you know, kind of set piece for the main characters. And then like especially kind of seeing, you know, again the club members and the other like kind of one-off characters and everything, you know, kind of through their eyes is it makes for some really powerful little one-off stories, and then they all kind of like, you know, compound together into their development by the end of the show and everything.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
I was just thinking how, you know, there's a lot of talk currently about entertainment, whether it's film or TV shows, that have strong female characters, either as leads or at least in existence. And while Ouran definitely has more males than females, I think that Haruhi is an excellent example of a strong central female character, and that the show itself, something that I really love about it is that it isn't about who Haruhi ends up with. Like, it is not a romance show. It's not a, you know, a date of the week type thing. Now, all of the fans love to ship Haruhi with whomever or Tamaki with whomever. And that's the fun of fandom. But what I tell so many people, like, the reason I really love the show is because it's about her, but it isn't about what man she ends up with.
Right,
you know?
right.
Even though they hint at it, and in the manga it goes more into that, but it takes a long time. I think there are 18 volumes of the manga, and it's not, you're still focusing on other stories. The romantic relationship is not central to the whole thing. So I think it's great that in the show it's not central either. It's just this kind of ancillary thing that sometimes you glance at. You know, occasionally you catch Haruhi looking at Tamaki in a different way, realizing like, what is this? And you can kind of see in her eyes that she's trying to process what it is she's feeling, because she's never felt these kinds of things, you know?
Right.
But it isn't a show about that, and that's so very refreshing.
And actually, because even, you know, we're talking about the romantic stuff, but the relationships, you know, sans romance or with it or otherwise, like the relationships that Haruhi forms with all of the club members. I mean, more so some with others, but, you know, there's a story to each of them.
Yeah.
And, you know, she kind of like is kind of unfolding all these things about them, you know, over the course of it's 26 episodes, right? The whole thing? And yeah, it's like, it's what's the deal with Mori? What's the deal with Honey and the twins, etc. Like, and each of those individual, you know, kind of mini stories and how then again they impact, you know, I guess what Tamaki and Kyoya already know is they've, you know, have a lot of history with them in general, but more so Haruhi, who's learning all these things for the first time. Like, it really is like a great kind of parallel to like, hey, life has a lot of crazy stuff and a lot of curveballs it throws at you, and sometimes you might not know how to handle it or what to say or what to do, but, you know, often you have people who can be there to help kind of guide you and get some answers, and
Exactly.
and come away from it as a more mature human being. I think.
I think that's another point of the show. Like, it isn't about, again, who she ends up with, but more that she learns how to be part of a community of friends, and to know that she has folks that she can lean on. I mean, her whole life, since her mom passed away, she's kind of been going it alone. She's got her dad, but he sort of needs someone to take care of him. So when it comes to her desires and her goals, she doesn't have to work towards them alone. She's got people there to support her, and it takes her the whole show to realize that that's what the host club is about, and that she does want to be there, and she does love the host club and everything that it has given to her and everything she's learned from it. So it's so special.
It's also magical. What was out of curiosity? What were the episodes on the disc that Sana gave you?
I eventually saw the whole thing. I don't recall at this point how many episodes she gave me to start out with, but I eventually watched it all.
Oh, sure, of course. But I mean, was there a particular like out of order like first episode that you saw, or was it the first episode of the show?
No, it was the first episode. So like I had a handful of episodes, probably like 1 through 4 or 1 through 6, something like that.
Okay. So I know this because this is often the next, I guess, section of this that I sort of do is favorite characters, moments, episodes. I know that for you that must be extremely difficult to pick, ones over others. But I mean, any in particular that maybe stood out more than others, or that you have fond memories with, like in the show or recording the show, anything like that in particular?
Sure. And you're right. It is difficult being the director to choose a favorite episode, moment, or character, because it's my job to really know them all so well I could play them all too, So I've felt everything that they are feeling and all of that stuff. So it's more like a short list of favorites than an absolute, it's this one,
Right.
I really love episode 10 is one of my favorites. It's so random, but it's the first time they meet Ranka, Haruhi's dad. They come to her house on a non-school day, like on a weekend. And I love that episode. It's just so great. They're so funny, out of their element. All the rich people, the rest of the host club, being there in her, commoner dwelling, and wanting to go to the grocery store and meeting dad and all this awkwardness. It was great. I just really adore that episode. I also loved working with Mike as Ranka, and he's a really good friend. He's a dear, dear friend. So it was very special to have him play my father. And I remember the very end of the episode, they are in the grocery store, and Haruhi's shopping, and Ranka is talking to Tamaki about her and, watching her grow up and all of these things. And I was sitting there out in my part of the studio, just like crying when he was done. It was so perfect. And so maybe that's why that specific episode is kind of dear to me. Otherwise,
sure, yeah.
My favorite host is Kyoya. I don't try to hide that. Everybody knows. Everybody knows. So any of the Kyoya-centered episodes I really love. Episode 17 is with he and Haruhi in the shopping mall, and that is brilliant. J. Michael Tatum is brilliant. And also episode 24 is, I think that's one of my favorite episodes that doesn't really involve Haruhi at all. I think she has a couple of lines at the beginning, but it's all the backstory of Kyoya and Tamaki, and how they met when they were first years, and before they were first years, when they were still in the junior high section of the academy. And man, that's both he and Vic were just phenomenal. I can't even.
I have lost my ability to even.
Yeah.
I actually had a question regarding Kyoya, because sorry everybody, I don't think unfortunately I would have enough material to do a full Did You Know voice acting video about this show, but I was curious because I had read somewhere Troy was originally going to be Kyoya. Was that right?
It's true.
And then was that like around the time that he moved here, I guess?
He had moved. He had already been moved, but
Okay.
I think Vic had even already moved or was about to, or didn't live in Dallas anyway. So having people fly in wasn't an issue. And even for him, I spoke with him before I turned in the cast, him being Troy. And he was all for it, but then it just got too busy. He had some scheduling conflicts come up and other opportunities, which I totally understand. I mean, that's an actor's life, and he's doing great, big, wonderful things. So he doesn't need Ouran on his resume anyway.
Well, even so, I think I read in that same thing I heard that he was like Tatum did a far better job than I ever could have done on that character. Even beyond being humble, I mean, like, Tatum was a standout performance on that series. Like, I think that because that was one of like his first like major characters, I think, by that time.
I think so. I'm trying to remember. I remember recording things with him back in the other building.
He was definitely like he was playing like named like important characters by that point for sure. But I think that was like one of the first like leads.
About being in a show that already had a following, that had such expectations beforehand.
Sure, yeah.
He'd been in some really good roles and in some good shows, but this was like the next big thing. But I'm just honored that Troy watched the show, or at least heard some of Michael's performance to be able to say that.
Yeah.
That's very sweet. I'm glad of that.
For me, speaking of Kyoya again, and please help me out because it has been a while. I believe did they go to the beach? There's a mansion or something, and they're staying in, and it's the scene where there's the thunderstorm.
Yes, that's episode 7. I also like that one. They do go to the beach, and they're staying at his family's beach house. Yeah.
Yes, and the very I'll call it the very intimate scene between Haruhi and Kyoya. I was like, whoa, okay. I think that was when I was like, all right, what's going on here? So that's when I was like hooked.
It's that moment in the show that makes you go, oh, this show's willing to take some risks.
Yeah.
But Haruhi just keeps her cool in that moment. She's so what's the word? She can read people. It's amazing how well she had him pegged. She's like, I know you're not going to do anything. It wouldn't benefit you. Like you don't feel at that point that the two of them have even had that many major conversations. For her to just be able to figure that out is crazy.
For sure, yeah. I also love the Alice in Wonderland parody one. Wasn't
that
amusing.
wonderful? I think that was such a clever use of the recap episode. Most animes have that recap episode by about episode 13, and usually they'll either do a silly recap or they'll be, let's go to the hot spring, and it's just an opportunity to put everyone in bathing suits and be silly. And
recycle lots of footage.
Yeah, like I hate those episodes. So this was great. It was like nothing's recycled, but let's revisit all the characters that you've seen so far in a weird kind of Alice sort of dream.
Yeah.
It was great.
It was super clever, and also getting to like see a lot of the little ancillary characters again, who just have their one story, and then they go home. That's it. Or someone Nekozawa would come back and his little sister and all that.
Yeah.
Love those two. They were adorable.
Jeremy was so funny in that episode, in the Alice episode, because Kirimi gets big, and so it was really kind of awkward. Like, no, Kirimi, no, you're not supposed to look sexy. You're like, you're 7.
I remember she's all like looking at herself like, oh, what happened? I was like, all right, let's go to the next scene, please.
No, Ouran, don't go there. Please don't go there.
Of the main cast, I would say Kyoya was definitely up there for sure. I did really like Haruhi, and I was actually very not unlike, I didn't think you were capable of that, but I was very like delightfully surprised at your performance on her, because I don't even think I had a thought process of like who would have played her in the dub. Because I mean, you know me, I do casting for some of my own stuff as well, and I made a game and like, who are you gonna get for this show or whatever, right? And like, stuff like Vic as Tamaki, it's like, duh, yeah, it's like you couldn't get more perfect casting than that, obviously. And then like with Haruhi, because especially like at that time, you guys didn't have like Maxie or like Ryan Reynolds and a lot of them who like do some of the more kind of like tomboyish or like just that kind of vocal quality to them. So getting to hear you do that, and like the first episode, I was like, oh wow, I really like this. Like it sounds so real and it works, and like I'm just gushing to you about yourself now.
Good. No, it's still kind. Even after all these years, I still appreciate it. She was definitely a departure and a risk. If there was any risk taking involved in the casting, I felt that it was my casting myself in that role. But I didn't do it intentionally. Well, not intentionally. What do I mean? It was never my plan from the get-go to do that. It was more like I had folks in mind, and going into auditions, I hadn't pre-cast at all, but I had kind of short lists in my mind, like to make sure so-and-so read for this role because I think that they'd be good, those kinds of things. And then I was definitely willing to be surprised and let anybody, do something different that I wasn't expecting. I was fine with that. So I had, before auditions, a list of folks that I anticipated would make a good Haruhi, but I really needed to hear them and then hear them with the ensemble, because the ensemble in the show is what's so important. And yes, the folks that I had in mind came in and auditioned and sounded great, but the trouble was there were all of these side characters and one-off characters that they were also great at. And I knew, because the show was so special, that I didn't want any just episodic character. This sounds awful. I don't want to say to be wasted on like I don't know the right words. I mean, and no matter how I say it, it's going to sound wrong. But I did a lesser actor, a less known actor. Sure. It wasn't about using only veterans. It was just like I wanted every character to be as important as a host club member, but I couldn't have auditions for every single side character that existed.
Oh, sure. Well, I was going to ask, I was kind of skipping ahead a little bit, but I was going to ask, like, were there certain people, because, I mean, there's no pressure now, the show is what it is, but were there people that auditioned for certain, like, of the main characters, they're like, you know what, I really liked your audition for such and such, we're going with other person, but because you did so well on this person, I am absolutely giving you this character instead, like this in these couple episodes or whatever? Like, were there particular ones that came from the leads that kind of evolved into the side characters or anything like that?
Exactly. Like, it's kind of a no-brainer. Brina Palencia is fabulous at playing boys. And I also knew that Laura Bailey would be great, and that Leah Clark would probably be great. But when Brina came in, her boy voice is so very convincing, and I needed somebody to be Shido Takaoji in episode 6, the little kid who plays the piano, and he's just a little snot, and that one like really has to be super boyish. I'm like, nobody else can nail that besides her. That has to be Brina's part. So now Brina's out of the running, and then I love Fruits Basket, as do a lot of people, and so I needed an episode where Laura Bailey and Eric Vale can get together. So that's why in episode 2, they have the roles that they have, and and also because Laura was great for that kind of thing. But the audition sides were all of the host club members, Nekozawa, Kirimi, and
what's Monica's girl's
name? Thank you. Yeah,
Renge. That's right.
And Renge. Because I thought if I cast myself in the show, if I'm anyone, it would probably be Renge, because that's the type of character that I liked to play the most. So, but then Monica came in and she was so good at Renge, and Renge is so spastic and so very wordy, and because Monica and J. Michael Tatum wrote those scripts, she really understood the character and just how to nail those lines and make them fit the flaps and everything, so she was Renge. And in preparation for the auditions and listening to auditions after they'd been done, I just thought, I love Haruhi, and you should come away from watching that show just loving her and supporting her and wanting all of her dreams to come true. And I thought, I wonder if I could play her. I'd never done that type of role before. I'd never even really played little boys before. And if I had, it was just one line here or there doing bits in Walla. So I suggested it to Mike McFarland because at the time, all of the casting had to still go through the line producer to be given the okay. And he's like, well, let me hear it. You need to audition just like everyone else. So I played him mine, and then I played him the other people that were in the running, like Brina and Laura and Leah, Colleen. And he was like, okay, well, try doing this. So he kind of gave me some pointers vocally to help me find the voice better. And then he said, I'm still not sure. And I'm going to have to answer to people that might, it's a horrible thing to think, but people that might be, talking around the water cooler about, Caitlin cast herself in the lead in the next big show. So he wanted to be able to back me up and feel very confident in that decision. So I kind of had it harder than everybody else who just has to come in and say 8 sentences of dialogue and be done with it. I had to track the whole first episode. So the rest of the host club, at least, were cast, and I just had to move forward and direct myself and do a whole episode as Haruhi. And when he watched the whole episode, that's when he said, okay, you can do it.
Okay.
Yeah, it was scary. It was scary.
I'm actually really glad you told that story because, well, okay, for one thing, the other kind of defense I was going to give is, Justin didn't know he was going to be Yusuke when he was directing Yu Yu Hakusho. I don't think Laura knew she was going to be Sana in help me,
Kodocha.
When she went on to direct that, co-directed with Colleen. And, so just sometimes, like, circumstance, it happens. It's not that big of a deal. I think the other thing is, because I've talked to other people who do casting about this, because a lot of them are also, directors, engineers, writers, and are also actors, and often they will be in a lot of the stuff that they work on. I think that if it's, well, for one thing, it still just has to be good, and that much you absolutely had, as you proved it to Mike and what you just were telling me. But I think also, if it's like, okay, if it just so happens to work out this way, where it's like, yes, this is the best person, they also happen to be in this position of, of power on the production of the show, it's like, I can understand, like, some of the pessimists are like, oh, okay, because I think even like just recently Joel, who took over or has been doing a lot of One Piece, Mike was going to have him do Bartholomew Kuma, and he was like, I don't want to come off like I just gave myself a major character now that I'm directing it, and Mike was like, no, you work, I'm the authority, I'm going to let you go on that, don't worry about it. So it's like there's always, typically I find, more often than not, like there is like a real reason behind that, and it's not just I'm just gonna do it because I can and I want all the money and the attention and the whatever, and also I've cast myself in every cartoon I've ever worked on, so I can't lecture anyway. But
honesty, folks, transparency.
Yeah, well, at least I try to make sure. Well, actually, that's something else too, because okay. This is a criticism I have. This could be a whole nother topic, but a criticism I have of a lot of other I won't name specifics, but just some dubs sometimes is that, and often it's because there's no time, it's like, here's the same 15 people playing the exact same archetypes over and over, thereby giving absolutely no uniqueness or, anything to the sound of this story, even though there might be something to it that's original. It sounds like 5 other shows because it's the same combination of the same people doing the same things. And because, okay, even back like even before you were part of Funimation, when, the talent pool was very small, it always seemed like there was this really major, effort to try and differentiate the sound of each show. And even though like Sabbath is going to be in every show, Shemmel is going to be in every show, Laura is going to be in every show, but they're all doing different things in each of those. And often it seemed like there really would be a push to have like, hey, let's try some of the newer folks, or like, guys that were doing smaller parts in the previous series we just worked on. They've proven themselves. They can do a lead now, kind of thing. And like, I don't know, I feel like there's not as much of that as much as I would like there to be in specifically anime, and it kind of bums me out sometimes. But like, and maybe also to be fair, that could be the maybe even a commentary on how a lot of shows themselves are beginning to feel the same with a lot of the same archetypes or whatever.
Yeah, I think that's probably more of it. And also, back when things were sounding so different, the time period that you mentioned, there was a lot less anime being dubbed. So usually the shows that were getting picked up, companies were being more particular about we want, look at the things that Funimation put out when they started expanding from the world of Dragon Ball. It's like, okay, here's Blue Gender. Dang, that's really different from Fruits Basket, which is really different from Kitty Grade, which is really different from Yu. Like, they were all, the shows in and of themselves were very different. But now that the market has grown and there's such a big fan base, plenty of people, anime is the only type of entertainment they want to intake. And maybe there are a couple of other things they're into, but like the majority of it is like, give me all the anime all the time. And when that happens, it's like, okay, well, we just have to license more things, and some of them are going to be really similar to each other, and that's all there is to it.
For sure. Actually, kind of the nice thing, because I know that you're what are the 2 shows, or 3 rather, that you're directing, doing broadcast dubs right now?
I am working on Prince of Stride Alternative. We're on our last episode right now. I'm so sad because I really love it. Let's see, a show that I cannot tell you what it is. Sorry.
Okay.
And then I'm in pre-production for what will be my next broadcast dub, and I can't tell you what that is, but everybody will know, by the end of the month. So
okay.
And then
but you've done a few by this point.
Oh, for sure. And then Garo the animation. You can see 2 episodes of it streaming on Funimation, but the physical release is also the end of the month. So I was wrapping up some of it for the second half, episodes 13 through 25. Just last week, we finally put the final, okay, all of the pieces are in place. You can go make a master and have it mass produced now. It was very scary because that's my most precious thing that I've worked on, even more than Ouran. I love it more than Ouran. Shh, don't tell.
Oh, wow.
Don't tell Ouran, okay?
We'll have that for the plug at the end, that's for sure. That's
it's
a big
so
one.
different, though. It's like night and day different. And I'm just a different director now. It's anyway. Point being, y'all need to watch some Garo, okay?
For sure. I was going to say on that note, because kind of the opposite end of the spectrum on having to do things very quickly, because it's no secret the broadcast dubs it's like with Pokemon, where it's like new episode every week, no stop, go, ready. But what's nice is that there's all these new, Natalie and Justin Briner and all these guys, Cliff Chapin, all these like newer folks who come in and are getting the chance to do this stuff, like hit the ground running. Like it's awesome, and I'm happy to see that. And if anything, a lot of those I think are often having a lot of nice kind of cool inventive combinations of different people, because you just don't know what you're going to get sometimes.
Yes,
it's
true.
Let's go with this.
It's true.
Yeah.
Like there's what you think the show is, and it seems to be half and half with which shows come from. Sorry, it's the end of the day. I'm losing all my vocabulary. Okay. I've been directing all day. Some shows come from some other original material. They were based on a manga, or they were based on a video game. So shows like that, you at least have that material to do research about the characters and where the plot might go. But then there are a handful of shows that don't have original source material. They are the original. So all that you have as a director is like the 4 episodes that you've seen before you start dubbing the first one. And you have to have decided your cast by about the 3rd episode, because you have to get everybody booked, So sometimes there's what you think is going to be great, and then, oh, that person turns out they're the villain, or that one that you used, like, the best actor you had in mind, and their character dies.
Whoops. Yeah.
By like the 3rd episode, you're like, dang it.
I think even DBZ might have had some cases like that. It's like, oh, see, I wish you were around then, because you would have been this character. Meanwhile, Kyle's like, I could have been Piccolo if I were here before that.
Right. It's a fun challenge. I enjoy it. It was scary. It was a scary thought when I came back on as a director early last year. I started with a DVD dub, which was Riddle Story of Devil, which is fabulous. I know I'm tooting my own horn, but I just feel so fortunate that all the shows that I've worked on, I really, really dig them. I like them all.
Well, because you're tooting the horns of the people who created the shows.
That and of all the actors. When I say that it's fabulous, I mean that the finished product is everything that I wanted it to be. For sure. And everybody just, blew my mind when I said, I want this to be so-and-so. fingers crossed that they're awesome, and then they're awesome, so good for them. But anyway, I started with Riddle, and maybe a month into that process, it was my first broadcast dub, and it was when we went from having just 2 broadcast dubs, which was like Laughing Under the Clouds and another one that I can't remember. And then we're like, okay, that worked out. So now here's a whole bunch of them. And suddenly,
Where'd he go?
every studio is doing one. But I shared Absolute Duo with Zach. So every other week
Nice.
I would have an episode of that, which was a nice way to kind of ease me into that process since I was just getting back to directing. So it was Absolute Duo, and then Show by Rock, was that next?
Sounds about right. Yeah, that was still even recently
Yeah, that
too.
was
Yeah.
May. So then Show by Rock, and DVD-wise I was doing Lord Marksman and Vanities, and after Show by Rock came Noragami already? There was something else in there.
God, they're just flying by. I swear to God. Well, going back to Ouran.
Yeah, back to
no,
Ouran.
No, that's it's okay. No, I learned something. I hope you all did. What I was kind of getting to with the inventiveness and the casting process and all that too is because the characters in Ouran are all very, very unique.
Sure.
Because even the little one-off guys, like they all have like some funny kind of like quirk to them, or like just some whole like weird like set of personality traits, or like a cool design, or even and I think that was also another big thing even before I started watching the series. That was like, okay, I want to check this out because it's not suffering from same face syndrome as certain shows do sometimes with the designs, and I was like, okay, this is pretty cool. And then even like personality to match and the voices to match, I felt everybody felt very distinct. Because even I think about, you were talking about Brina's little boy character before, there was I think a character older than him that was played by Aaron Dismuke, and I was like, and I was like, that's really cool. Like, that made me happy because I was like, that's a very different kind of setup, especially because by that point Dismuke was just he was doing the little like the honey aged characters and everything, and yeah, just it was. I didn't think about it too hard because it was so well done. That's what I'm thinking, like, oh, that's boring or whatever. Then it's like, okay, well then that's not as fun.
That's
but
what you want when you're casting. You don't want the voices to interfere with the storytelling. I don't want to take people out of it. They're suspending their disbelief to watch this thing, and believe that there's this poor scholarship student at this filthy rich ridiculous school. So that's kind of my philosophy on casting and directing dubs anyway. We forget, we think that it's cartoons, so that everything needs to be big and broad and silly and Saturday morning cartoon. It's like that only applies sometimes. I feel we ask so much of our audience because of the material and the story and the way it looks. This kid with magic powers and blue hair and his 5 girlfriends with giant boobs. That is so unbelievable that if the voices don't feel like they belong, you're not going to care about the story or think that it's real or really find the heart of it. So I don't want the voices to get in the way. They need to help tell the story.
Well, especially also because I've told people this to their face, like when I hear the criticism of like, oh, but so and so doesn't sound, they don't have like that anime sound, or they're just like, I hate you, please stop insisting that stereotype that you want them to sound like people. Please.
That's the goal, people. And that's I think that just comes from you mentioned early on the gateway shows, the Pokemon, the Yu-Gi-Oh, the more Saturday morning type anime, and there's nothing wrong with those things. I mean, we probably wouldn't have the jobs that we have if it weren't for those shows that brought anime to the forefront and showed American companies that it was something that could make money. So let's dub more of it. So I'm very grateful. Heck, I'm a Pokemon now, so I'm
That's what you did.
Yeah, I'm not complaining, but I think shows like that have a different type of delivery to them because of the formulaic nature of the show and because they are geared towards a younger audience. And things that are geared towards a younger audience, there should be kind of a way you expect to hear things, because kids are are taking social cues from the stuff that they're learning and the things that they hear and they take in through entertainment and etc. So in those types of shows, I don't want to say you forgive it, because these are all our friends acting in all of those things, and I'm not insulting them at all. But that anime sound, quote unquote, that some fans are apparently looking for, it comes from being raised on Pokemon, the Yu-Gi-Oh, shows like that. I think, I don't know. That's like the first time I've ever said that out loud,
and you know me. I mean, I'll defend Pokemon till the cows come home for sure. Like, I think it's more so just like when like the medium isn't always being fully taken seriously, and it's just like, whatever. But it's like, no, there's something being said about this, which goes back to what you said before about, especially good point with the Pokemon thing, where it's like kids, kids are watching your series, like, which I mean, for one thing, it's like, oh wow, it's like they're discovering this show, like, through one way or another, and getting invested in it, and hopefully it's impacting them in a really powerful or at least somewhat meaningful way, and that they'll take something away from by the end of it, or whatever they happen to see of it, etc. And I'm really glad. I'm if anything, that's the biggest thing I'm glad to take away from this, because I really didn't know that you were meeting kids that young that were watching it and enjoying it so much. Like that seriously does make me happy to hear that.
Yeah, we have so much fun. I've started doing offering a panel to conventions called the Ouran Slumber Party, and because there often aren't things for younger con attendees to do at night, because it's usually when the dances are happening. Dances are sometimes 18 and up, things like that. Maybe it's a con that doesn't have 24-hour video rooms, whatever. So I tell the con, if you can get me cereal and milk or candy or something like that, enough to feed an entire room full of people, a projector and a DVD player, we're just going to watch Ouran in our pajamas and be silly. And it goes over like gangbusters, the places that I've had it. It is wild to see rooms packed to the gills with people. I'm like, what are you guys doing? Don't you have like Cards Against Humanity to go play or something? But no, they're there in the Ouran room, and there usually isn't enough cereal because we didn't expect that many people. So we're just like throwing handfuls of candy at folks, and then like taking a poll, which episode do you want to watch? And it's like Rocky Horror Picture Show. Like, everyone is allowed to sing as loud as they want, shout things at the TV, quote along with all of their favorite parts. And I look out and into the audience, because I'm usually sitting up on the stage with the screen behind me, and I'm just watching people like quote it and laugh and still cry and cheer for stuff. And I am so blown away, because I never ever would have suspected that it could mean so much to so many people after all these years. It's crazy.
No, that's amazing. I mean, because of course it's one thing. I mean, because I've seen you at many premieres. I think I was even there for when Conqueror of Shambhala premiered, like, going way back, and you were like on cloud nine. You looked like when that was happening. And because like, yeah, having like the premiere screenings at cons is always like super exciting. I've been around for many of those. Oh, I went to the Alabasta movie screening as well way back already. That was so long ago, but that was almost 10 years ago. What is happening? But no, having something like this where it's like it's a bonding experience.
Yeah.
Like I would bet good money like people like, oh dude, you love this show too. Oh, do you also like this show? And then like might have walked away from out of that room with a friend or two.
Yeah.
Like it's this is such a feel good Kirblog you're doing right now.
I do what I can.
No, I appreciate it. I think we're kind of winding down. Is there any but before I want you to do your plugs for the stuff you're doing now, of course, but any final closing thoughts, things, anything about this show that you want to express out there, anything like that, really?
I just want to say thanks to everyone for still watching it and supporting it, and loving it and sharing it with your friends and people who don't know anime. And thanks to everybody for giving it a chance when on the surface it might look girly or like something that you wouldn't be interested in. It's so special, and I don't know anybody that doesn't like it. Seriously, I don't know anyone. And if you don't like it, I don't want to know you. No, I'm just kidding.
Well,
go away. No, I don't mean that.
I don't want you in my planet.
Here's the thing, though. While I have the opportunity, I don't know how many people will hear this, but it's probably weekly that I get a tweet or a Facebook message or something saying, will you sign this petition to get Ouran Season 2 to happen? And I hate having to shut people down, but I do. I do it anyway, so I'll do it here as well.
Oh, please, yeah.
Is there going to be an Ouran Season 2? And they always say, I heard there is. And I'm like, no, you didn't. You heard a rumor. Like, don't you think we would know at Funimation? We would know. Also, as mentioned earlier in this very recording, the first Ouran came out in Japan 10 years ago. 10 years ago, which meant the manga was being written earlier than 10 years ago. And then it didn't get dubbed until 2008. So the dub is almost 10 years old. If they were going to make more, they would have already. Trust me. I think that the popularity of the show here in the States belies the fact that it is, I don't want to say not popular in Japan, but it's not a thing. You know, it's not a big deal. There's some other thing that's a big deal. There. It's not Ouran. But because it's so many people's first anime, and they go to conventions and they meet other folks that love it, you know, at the Ouran Slumber Party or wherever, they're like, more, I want more! Like, yeah, we did too, 10 years ago when we dubbed it. So
I don't know if the manga's being published in English over here, but I mean...
The manga, yes it has. Yeah.
Oh, okay, cool.
It has,
cool.
but even that, the last volume of that came out years ago, at least 5 years ago. Probably. It was when volume 18 came out. So I'm not saying that it couldn't pull like a Full Metal Alchemist and have a, you know, Ouran High School Host Club Brotherhood version.
Or Fully Cooley, which just happened like 5 seconds ago. It's like, wait, what? Excuse me?
Yeah, but I don't think that it will. There is more story to be told based on what was told in the manga. But like I said, I think they would have done it already. And Studio Bones has moved on to, I don't want to say bigger and better things, but other things. Definitely other big things. Some of my favorite shows. I think Bones is my favorite studio. So they did Noragami, and they're doing My Hero Academia, and... Yeah. They're wonderful. You mentioned before how the show has a style, and each character has a look to them, and the show has a look to it, and every show that Bones does has its own look. And if there's anything you can say about a Bones show, some of the way they show comedy is the same from show to show, but basically the way I know it's Bones is that it is so singularly different. You know, like, oh, I bet I know who animated this one, and it's always them whenever I'm like, this one's awesome. Who made this?
Yeah,
it's
absolutely.
usually Bones.
Regarding where it cut off to, I would say, like, I mean, the ending of the series, without giving too much away or anything, I feel like it is still a pretty good like cutoff point in terms of like, okay, yeah, sure, there's more that could and will happen, you know, in the original medium, assuming it came from. But you know, I mean, like it's a really fun 26 episode ride, and has a good beginning, middle, and end in and of itself to that, you know, length of time.
Exactly.
So.
Like, if it kept going, maybe it wouldn't be as beloved. Like, people love it so much because when it's over, they want more, and there's nothing to do except watch it again. You know? Just watch it again. And find something else to love about it.
Watch it again and again. Is it on the subscription service?
I think you can get it on there, yeah. Watch it in both languages. I mean, I love it in Japanese as well. Everyone's fantastic. It's great to hear Miyano-san, who plays Tamaki, because now he's just like the biggest dang thing. But 10 years ago, he was still kind of new at stuff, and he's just so brilliant and inspired, the things that he does. And Maya Sakamoto, I didn't realize until someone pointed it out to me, that Hitomi in Escaflowne was Maya Sakamoto's debut role. And so now I've shared two very huge and important roles in my life were in hers as well. Wow. So that's pretty cool.
Can you say if you guys have started or finished?
We're doing it. I can say that.
Okay.
We're
doing it. Okay. I mean, it's out there. People know at the new Escaflowne.
We're doing it.
Exciting. I was also going to say I mean, because my God, I'm giving so much unsponsored plugs to many Funimation shows now. But I would definitely highly recommend the DVD release of this series as well, because it is one of the very rare and few anime that has a wonderful blooper reel.
Outtakes.
That are just, they put me on the floor. The rare times where, because for those of you who don't know, and this is not a complaint, this is just how it is many Japanese companies aren't often comfortable, I think, with blooper reels and outtakes for their shows, which, you know, they're perfectly entitled to be. It's their property. But I was very happy that the owner and creators of the show were allowing and doing that, because it's a long one. It's like a pretty good amount of material mixed in there too.
Yeah, it's a good 10 minutes, 10 to 15 minutes per volume. Yeah.
My favorites were, again, without spoiling, but I'll just say the ending sequence of the last episode is just music, but you guys dubbed it and made a whole...
That's what I said. I'm like, I want a director's cut version. So that's what
where you can actually hear everybody talk. It's wonderful. And then also you doing your One Piece next episode for you.
On the next.
Oh, God, I'm going to be doing this for 30 years. Love you, Colleen.
Yes.
That's, yeah. I think, yeah, right. Well, someday Vivi will be back. Don't you worry. One Piece. It's going to talk about that one soon, too. Don't you worry, everybody. I think that's going to wrap us up. So thank you again so much for giving me a whole hour of your time. This was awesome. Yeah, any and all things, social media shows, anything you want to plug, please, you have the floor.
Okay, let's see. I already mentioned Prince of Stride Alternative, which is another wonderful show. It does have a lot of pretty boys in it, so if you liked Ouran for pretty boys, you'll probably like Prince of Stride for pretty boys, though just like Ouran, it is not a show about which guy the girl ends up with. It's about heart and running this awesome sport called Stride, so please check it out. I adore it, and then coming out on DVD and Blu-ray at the end of the month is Garo the Animation, which if you're into big, kind of epic, fantasy, swashbuckly type stories, then this one is for you. And it is a bit TVMA. There's some risky business going on in there, so check that out.
Who's all in Garo, out of curiosity?
It stars Rico Fajardo as the lead character, Leon, and David Wald is his father. Herman Luis. Vic Mignogna plays Mendoza, the villain. Monica Rial is in there. And it takes place in a fictional Spain around the time of the Spanish Inquisition, or, you know, Don Quixote type era, if you want a time period. And I lived in Spain, so it was right at my alley working on this show. There's a lot of Spanish language involved, and it's epic. I adore it. And I promise that you will too. Justin Briner, hello, don't forget, you mentioned him earlier, so I would be remiss to not also mention him. He's another of the leads in the show.
He is too damn talented and handsome. I just want to punch him in the face. I love you, Justin.
Please don't. I need his mouth to work and say the words. Okay.
If we can cut this out if I'm not supposed to mention. Scott Frericks also mentioned it was lovely working with you on that.
Yes,
show.
He was great. He's in there often. I kind of learned what crew of Bit and Walla guys I could call on for this type of show, and if they were versatile, they would get called in often, and it was great because they knew what was going on and they understood the world of the show. I didn't have to explain too much, so he's definitely one of those I could call on, and he had been in some of the earlier sessions, just being, you know, random this guy and that guy, and there's a point in the show where you see the son of a certain important character, and it's a small bit. I mean, essentially it is a bit, but I wanted him to be it because I'm like, you need to be somebody of note in this show, and pretty much everything's been cast, so you get to be this guy. But I love working with Scott. He's really talented and very humble. So.
And I know that you have new stuff you can't talk about yet, but where can they follow you on the social medias so they can see when you announce and get to flail your arms around a lot about new things?
Absolutely. Please follow me on Twitter. I'm most active on Twitter. It is Caitlin's Voice, CAITLINS Voice. And on Facebook you can find me Caitlin Glass, voice actor. I put announcements and convention stuff and schedules and things up there. Instagram is Glass Caitlin. Those are the 3 that I do, but I'm most active on probably Twitter and Instagram. Yeah.
Okay, cool. And I will have links to where you can view and buy Ouran High School Host Club if you have not checked it out. But that is going to wrap us up. So, in the comments below, if you have indeed seen the show, please tell us your personal experiences, favorite characters, episodes, things at all about the series. And also, if you have any stories about shows that Caitlin worked on, maybe meeting her at conventions or something, leave a comment about that too if you like, or give her your adoration on the Twitter instead, so you can see it. Because I'm not expecting her to scour the comments of this video. And that's I think gonna wrap us up. So yeah, and then also if you have future suggestions for Kirblog topics, anime or otherwise, leave a comment about that too. Hit me up on the usual Twitter, Tumblr, Facebook, you know the drill, etc. Caitlin, thank you. Also everybody go play Tales of Zestiria so you can hear us be awesome together in that with all our friends. Yeah.
Duh.
I hear there's an anime. Yeah, maybe that would be.
Yeah, whatever happened to that? That is supposed to be a thing.
Hopefully we don't know anything, everybody. I'm not being facetious. We don't know anything, but God, I hope so, because that would be awesome. That'll do it. Thanks, everybody. Caitlin, thank you again, and we will see you all later. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Is that your phone?
It is.
Is this from the show? What is this?
I downloaded this legally, like I paid for it. I don't know, it's like the lullaby version. Isn't it cute?
Oh, I know, now I hear it. Oh, what's going on? Oh my, that's, okay. Yeah,
and now I got an email, so I ruined it.
Oh no.
Anyway, bye everybody!
Okay. Stop, buddy. I am keeping that in, I didn't really...